Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode was recorded a few months ago, prior to the accident, and it's a good one. My friend Phil, he recently released his book, going into further detail about today's testimony from him. It's a powerful one, but it can at times be a heavy one, and some of what he talks about may not be suitable for children. So, if you're listening to this podcast with your kids running around, maybe put some headphones in for this one. It's a very incredible testimony, but as you'll note, a lot of it I spend with my mouth shut because it's kind of a wild ride, but a very beautiful ride. So, thanks for listening, and let's get right into the episode.
So the dance floor was about 2 steps lower. That's what the sanctuary was.
Okay.
I'm sitting back in the back, and I'm on a bar stool at a pub table, listening to the gospel. And the pastor just starts talking about Jesus delights in the mere thought of you. And he starts pointing around the room. He points directly at me. And I felt his presence for the first time.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, God, I didn't know I could feel you. What is happening? And I just start crying, man. I'm trying to fight it. A couple months later, it's at a Wednesday night service. I'm still back. I don't trust anybody, man. I was a real mess. Sitting, that was my spot. I had my own pub table and a bar stool, and I'm listening to the message. And the pastor said, this is a Nazarene church, man. The pastor says, if you think there might be something extra and you've never been baptized in the Spirit, I want you to come forward. I'm like, I want more. So I went forward. And I'm standing there, hands out, ready to receive a gift. And I see the pastor reach his hand up to put his hand on my head. So I closed my eyes, and I saw a light coming through the top of my head as he put his hand on my head. A light from the top of my head. I didn't shake. I didn't feel anything. But I just went back and I sat back in my place, and I'm like, what was that? Was it my imagination? I looked where I stood. I'm trying to figure out, was that a light in my top of my eyelids? What was that?
Yep.
It was a light through the top of my skull. And I got messed up. Like, I could not hold it back. Snot, slobber, tear. I mean, I was sweating. I didn't know what that was. After my years at BSSM, I look back on that. I'm like,
you're being delivered.
When Jesus was talking about the prodigal son, that was me.
Wow.
It's like I came out of the muddy swine hole. I never got any judgment. He just loved me and welcomed me home.
Wow.
And I didn't understand it.
What's up, Internet? Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am joined with my friend Phil. We met because I destroyed my back last year at some point and needed it fixed. So this man, he's a massage therapist. That's how we met. We got to talking about all sorts of different things because of the stickers on my water bottle. I said, real men talk, I think. And I remember it spurred on a conversation between you and I about uh, mental health and how important it is with men. You've been to the BSSM through Bethel, and you have a bit of a wild testimony. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. How you doing, man? How's life going?
It's good. That's work's been a little bit slow, but typically in the massage industry, that's pretty typical for springtime. But I can't remember last time we talked. I told you I'm writing a book, and I'm just coming up on finishing that up now. So I've had time to really dive in and focus on that. So that's been good. But man,
That's
I'm
awesome.
ready to be done.
Yeah, I bet, man. That's got to be a process.
Yeah.
I've got another friend who's about to start, or I think he's going to be finishing up his book, but it's been a process too, I know for sure. And just listening to like all of it. And then once you get into the point where you're like doing actual, like trying to get it published and stuff, that's a whole other It's a whole
Yeah.
other beast. Are you planning on trying to get to move in that direction after you're done writing it, or right now is it just get it written and then see where it goes from there?
Yeah. So I did my 3 years of BSSM, and now I'm online through the Backlund Leadership Academy. And one of their requirements is to have a dream project. And I just known for a long time I was supposed to write a book, and I felt that this would give me the accountability to actually get it done. I didn't know that the requirement was to have it published. So it's got to be done by the end of May.
Nice.
So I'm just going through the final touch ups, proofreading, making sure the periods are there where they need to be, commas, quotation marks, all that stuff. And then I'm going to probably start formatting here end of this week, which sounds like it's a pretty basic process. This is all new to me, but um, yeah. And then publishing through Kindle, I think it's a pretty
Okay.
basic process. Um,
Self-publish then? Yeah.
yep. Yep.
Right on, man. That's awesome.
So
And so that book is basically your testimony, and
it
clearly
is.
there's enough there to fill up a book, huh?
It's it's been surprising actually. Yeah, the I was sitting with somebody who knows a lot more about AI than I do. I was going to see about, hey, what he knows about my story. Can we enter some of that into an AI and see what kind of image it comes up with for a
Hmm.
cover? Through the process of talking with him, I shared with him part of my story that I'll share here with you and the audience here in a bit. We decided. I decided that it's my mugshot is going to be on the cover,
There you go.
and I said, "Man, I can't thank you enough for the help. I really feel the Lord on this,
Yeah,
and I'm having trouble coming up with a title. So if you hear anything from Holy Spirit, please feel free to let me know."
definitely.
And we parted ways. I'm sitting in my car getting ready to leave. I met him for coffee, and he said, "Phil, I don't know if this sounds good to you. Maybe it's from the Lord, maybe it's not. You can take it or leave it. But what do you think of From Gavel to Glory?" I went, "I think that's it.
That's awesome, man.
From Gavel to Glory."
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I'm excited. It's longer than I thought, but I've been around on this planet for 55 years, so
Yeah.
it's a long story, but it's an easy read. I'm
Yeah.
a simple guy, so it's going to be an easy read.
That's awesome, man. Well, heck, let's get right to it. Wherever you feel like you could start off. I mean, obviously, you didn't grow up in the faith. It sounds like, at least from what I remember.
I actually did.
Oh, you did. That's
I
okay.
I did, and then turned away from it. So,
All right.
um,
Well,
which
let's
kind of
hear
makes it
it.
even more powerful.
Hmm.
But yeah, so grew up. I'll just I just surrendered my time tonight to Holy Spirit, and we'll just see where He goes, if
Yeah,
that's cool with you.
absolutely, man.
Um, Grew up in a little town, Bishop, California. There's like 4,000 people to this day. Um, it's high desert, 4,200 feet, Mammoth Mountains right up the hill. Grew up swimming, skiing, playing soccer, and got saved when I was 8. My mom was a preacher's kid from Mississippi, so it was Baptist, which that's be afraid of God, be very afraid.
Yes.
There was no, it wasn't any love or forgiveness. It was be afraid. Graduated high school, went down to Orange County, and started swimming down there. Then got my AA, which is junior college degree, and got recruited to swim for Chico State. And when I got there, the captain of the team told me that you realize now that Chico State, this is the 10th year in a row they've been voted number one party school in the nation by Playboy magazine. I'm like, no, I didn't know that, but okay.
Hmm.
So it was essentially a drinking team with a swimming problem, you know. And we swam fast and had a good time doing it. Literally 6 nights a week, just getting plastered. When you're 20, you can do that.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine doing that now, but declared psychology as my major, PE as my minor. I was going to be either marriage, family, child counselor or sports psychologist. And I always kind of had a knack for massage. I've been rubbing on my teammates for a couple of years now. And in an apartment complex where I was living, you just meet people. I met this guy. He said he's having a headache, and I said, "Hey, sit down, man. Let me rub on your neck."
Hmm.
And there were several times where I just erased a headache that he had, and he said, "Phil, you know, I know you spent a lot of time and money doing this, chasing this psychology thing, but this is like the fourth time you've erased a headache, and I just think you should go to school and start making money at something you're already good at because I can tell you're getting depressed."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't really like doing this, but I like what my professor has. I want a Ferrari." So,
Yeah.
chasing that dream. But anyway, so I called my mom and told her what my buddy had said. And, this is in 1991, 92. So no cell phones.
Yep.
And she said, "Honey, let me call a friend in the church. Her daughter is a massage therapist. Let me look into this."
Yeah.
A few days later, I hear back from her, and this friend of hers in the church, her daughter went to the Swedish Institute School of Massage Therapy in New York City. And, I'm living at Chico State. I got, hair halfway down my back. I'm, living a hippie college lifestyle. And I'm like that, the Big Apple kind of scares me. So
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
know, Mom. And she said, "Well, honey, it was the very first massage school established in the country. It was established in 1916, and the doors have never closed, even
Wow.
through the Great Depression."
Wow.
I said, "Well, I believe God gave me a gift for this, so maybe I can find a way to work on the best athletes on the planet. But the only way to do that is to get a real education." There was a school in Chico that offered a 3-week massage program, and I'm like, I don't think that's going to do it.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you know, flew out to New York, interviewed, and got accepted. Scared to death, grabbed myself between the legs, did the pee-pee dance, and moved to New York City, man.
That's crazy.
It was nerve-wracking. I my first month I had to live at the YMCA because the student housing where I was going to live didn't have a room available yet. So, I was in a building full of people that were right next to being on the street.
Mm, yeah.
In a twin size bed in a 6 by 8 foot room. I mean, it was eye opening.
Mm.
Made me really appreciate everything I had because there were people there that were just at rock bottom.
Well, is are they still like that at all? Because I mean, when I think of YMCA, I always think of the gym part.
Sorry, you think of what?
Like, aren't they a gym as well?
Yeah, there's a pool and a gym down there, but it was this building is like 20 stories tall.
Okay. So it
So
wasn't the actual like it wasn't them as a company doing that. It was just in that building.
correct.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
That makes sense. More sense then. Okay.
yeah. So one I'll just throw it. So it was really convenient because they had a cafe in the building. So I'd come home from school, grab some food, go upstairs, study, and I was really hiding because there was a lot of people and nobody is as friendly as they were in Chico. So I was just hiding in my room most of the time. So I get to the elevator after going to the cafe and grab a sandwich, and a guy tells me to hold the door. I hold the door. He comes in. It's one of the cooks, and because he's wearing his cook outfit, and he turns around to push the number on the door, and he's got a cockroach on his back.
Oh my.
And I'm like, wait, the cooks have cockroaches on them?
I'm not eating
They
there no more.
they have to be in my food, man. So got out of the elevator, threw the sandwich away, and never ate again. Never
Mm,
ate there again. Um, Student housing opened up, and it was at 125th and Broadway. The place is called the International House, and there's about 10 stories that are student housing. You have to be a student, and only 20% could be American.
Hmm.
The rest were from all over the world. And, it was a pretty cool setting. I met people from all over the world. There was a bar downstairs, so it was easy to meet people. Most people were there and ready to make friends, because they're in the same situation.
Yeah.
So, but mostly I was just happy to have, it was a decent sized studio. I had a full size kitchen. I had my own bathroom, and I had a view of the Hudson River. Instead of a concrete wall, I could actually
Yeah.
look at
That's
some
awesome.
air and some trees and a park. So, throughout the process of school, it was early on. It was first month. One of the professors said that, he was telling the guys, like, men, I'm sorry to tell you, women have an easier time making money in this industry for whatever reason, whether it's women have been hurt by men, whether it's men would rather be touched by women, women are more nurturing, whatever it is.
Yep.
It's just a fact of the industry. And this is in 1996, and today it's still true.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to work on athletes. So I felt like it was encouraging because athletes don't care.
Hmm.
They just want to keep their engine running, so to speak. Then the following week or sometime in that general time, he also said that if we have this practice, if we're practicing massage for any length of time, there will be times where a client will break down crying on our massage table. And he said that you have just released a memory that they didn't know they had.
Ooh, okay, yeah. I actually just talked about something similar to this
Oh, you did?
with somebody. Yeah, a friend of mine out of Nashville. I forget what it's fascial something or other. I wouldn't be able to remember it off the probably wouldn't say it right even if I had it
Uh,
right in front of me, but something about how they manipulate the body and that they trigger that off a lot of times. It's
yeah,
kind of crazy.
myofascial, some memory, something.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and I'd studied psychology, and now I'm studying body work, and I don't know how that your psyche can put that memory into a muscle.
I don't know.
Or,
Well, one thing that we talked about that's interesting is they've, like in science, they found memory cells in the heart. So I
oh
wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised if, there's some sort of neural pathway that like triggers different. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah. One of the pastors I talked to said he's heard like patients that have a heart transplant have memories of the other
Yep.
person.
Yep.
That is wild.
It is, dude.
That would be weird.
Very, very.
So anyway, I felt really encouraged because I'm like, man, I have some training in psychology. I'll be a good listener. I'll be able to handle it. And so I was just, as I'm learning anatomy and physiology, which is almost a repeat because I was studying PE already. So the A&P part was coming pretty easily to me. Um, and I started learning how to get around on the trains. I made a few friends. So it was easier to be there. And so we have anatomy, physiology, and then in a separate class, we have actual practical massage where there are 12 tables in a room. And you know how they have curtains in a hospital room to
Yep.
kind of for privacy?
Hmm.
So they had the same thing for the students to get undressed and get under the sheets and that kind of thing. So I was the victim that day. I was the person, and it was leg day, so I was going to get my quads worked on. And it was sickening, man. I had the memories come back that my mother had molested me for years.
Oh, wow.
And here I am. I'm undressed under a sheet, but the whole room can see me. And I there's nothing can prepare you for that, man.
Oh, I believe it.
I mean, my mom was a preacher's kid, so I didn't want to turn to God for it. I blamed him for it. I blamed her for. I was ticked at the whole world, man.
Yeah.
I I didn't know who I was anymore. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait, where did this come from? I mean, I remember the beatings and the yelling. She was a pretty angry person, but how could I not remember that?
Oh yeah, so you had shoved it down, and that was the first time remembering in years, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, and I had girlfriends plenty of times. It's not like I was intentionally hiding that from them. It wasn't here. It was apparently stored in my leg.
Wow, it's wild.
So I'd made a couple of friends. Um, a woman who was in massage school with me, and her husband. And the first thing we had in common was heavy metal.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, I have some people I can hang out with. And they were seeing a therapist for their, just general life stuff. Um, but it was a hypnotherapist,
Mm.
and I had studied psychology. I had written papers on hypnosis. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know what else is in here and here. But I need to. That stuff needs to be dug up.
Yeah.
So I'm going after it. I got the therapist's phone number. Called and left a message, and man, I don't know how long I cried, but it was a long, long, ugly cry because I'm like, I need serious help, and I've never
Yeah,
felt this before. You know what I mean?
definitely.
And I didn't. This is the stuff I've kind of navigated through the book because in the end, if people finish it, I want them to know that the God we serve is boundless.
Yeah.
He doesn't live in a box we try to put him in. So, but I wanted nothing to do with him at that point. So, go in, start digging up some of the really ugly memories, and the therapist was really focused on trying to get my anger out
Mm.
because I was bottling it up. As a Christian, you're not supposed to let that stuff out. You're supposed to control yourself and honor your mother.
Mm.
I felt like killing her. So what do I do with that?
Yeah.
The therapist there were several times where she gave me a pillow. So I'm just kind of leaning back, got my eyes closed. And I remember several times making sure I wasn't being manipulated. I'd open my eyes and look around while I'd look right at her and talk to her just to make sure, she wasn't going to make me stand up and cluck like a chicken. We've all seen that crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And she kept giving me a pillow and saying, "Yeah, I want you to hit the pillow." And I'm like, I can't think about my mom and hit something.
Hmm.
I wanted to. There was a rage in me. So she kept giving me a towel, and I would just wring the towel as hard as I could. And then I remembered the many, many times where mom would pray for me to stop frowning as a little kid. I mean,
Mm.
always praying for me to stop frowning. And in this session, I was like, you know what, mom? I wonder why I'm frowning all the time. Why don't you stop touching me all the time? And as I wrung that towel as hard as I could, I was, man, I'm just going to be real with you.
Dude, go for it.
I was imagining myself choking her to death with her eyes popping out, her red face, veins popping out of her head. And I just, effing die, bitch.
Mm.
And I finally just broke. You know,
Yeah.
I was in a, it was ugly, man. But
Mm.
there was also a point where in another session, the therapist wanted me to get in touch with my inner child.
Mm.
So she just asked me basically just, and she never put ideas in my head. She always asked me to think of something.
Right.
I should make that clear.
Right.
Because if I had picked up on any manipulation, I would have just left. But she said, I want you to imagine yourself as a little boy. Tell me what you see. And I quickly imagined myself, I was probably 9 or 10. And I was sitting alone on the couch at the house, which is still my favorite house in Bishop. But I was just sitting there like just sad and alone.
Mm.
And she said, "Okay, what do you want to say to that boy?" And it was interesting, man, because I could, me as an adult, going up to this troubled little boy, put my arm around him and saying, "It's going to be okay one day, Philip." And that little boy, because I didn't think people liked me at all when I was little. In fact, I remember crying, thinking nobody likes me.
Yeah.
And I told myself, like, people do like you, you just don't know it. The friends that introduced me to this therapist, I called them after that session, and there was a piece on me, and I was like, this is before cell phones, so I had to go to their apartment to listen to the recorded message. And as I'm listening to myself, I was like, whoa. I'm listening to myself and I'm like, man, I feel so good. I don't know how this stuff works,
Hmm.
but I feel good. And then I started getting in touch with some emotions from my childhood, like the good stuff too.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I was seeing that therapist once a week and doing homework. And my attitude was, that woman took my innocence. She's not taking this from me. Like I was getting straight A's for the first time in my life.
Yeah, for
And I'm
sure.
like, she's not taking this from me. And so I used anger as my motivation. That was my drive.
Hmm.
It's not the healthiest, but it's all I had, man.
Yeah.
So started working out, started eating a little better, and I Tower Records there on Fourth and Broadway was my favorite. Man, there that was a 4-story record store,
Hmm.
and
That's
the heavy
crazy.
metal selection was just, it was off the hook. So I'd often go there after school, buy a new CD or 10
Exactly.
and commute on the trains. But there was one time where there was a line out the door. This is like November-ish. It's cold, it's snowing. And I'm like, why is there a line out the door in this place? And I walked inside and I saw a booth where two people were signing CDs. It was a Christmas CD.
Hmm.
And there was Angela Lansbury, who's in the TV show Murder She Wrote in the 80s.
Okay.
That was my mom's favorite TV show. And so at that point, this is the part where, as I've looked back now, being sober and getting right with God and all this stuff, I look back to that time and I know, even in my worst anger, I know Jesus was still there.
Yeah.
And somehow in the middle of that stuff, I still had compassion for my mom. She was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm looking at this woman, I'm like, I have to buy a CD and get her to sign it for my mom.
Yeah.
This might be the last Christmas present I ever buy for my mom. So I go get it signed and I walk up to her and I just say, "Hey, will you please just sign this? Get better soon. I own." I own was my mom's name.
Hmm.
So I mail it to her and she opens the wrapping and looks at it, calls me and says, "Why? It's open." She thought I bought her a used CD. Like, open the cover. "Oh my goodness, honey, you met her?" I'm like, I didn't have a chance to talk to her much, but yeah. And I told her the
Hmm.
story. It's a weird, it was a weird contrast because I still couldn't talk to her about what she'd done to me.
Yeah.
I was afraid of her. It was weird. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess that's all I can think to say about that. But so anyway, time progresses, therapy, school's going well. I'm kicking butt, and I graduate with straight A's. Then I go home to Chico. An old landlord of mine had a therapist who was getting ready to leave the country, and she was looking for someone to take over her clientele.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, cool, yeah, let me. introduced me to her. So I go over to her house where her practice was. I give her a massage as like an interview
Yeah.
for, so she can tell her clients that this guy actually knows what he's doing.
Right.
And I never got one phone call.
Mm.
I remembered my professor saying, women have an easier time making money than men. And I suspected, whether it's man or woman, they're used to having a female therapist. Who's this strange guy? So,
Yeah.
I had moved back in with my best friend. We met in second grade and I started smoking weed again and
Mm.
delivering pizza. All the stuff mentally and emotionally I was trying to deal with. I didn't want to think about it. I didn't want to feel it. So drinking and smoking. And
Yeah.
then I get a call from my sister, who was actually living on Long Island at the time. Um, when the memories of this abuse hit me, I called her. She's 8 years older than me. We have the same mom, different dads.
Okay.
And I told her, this is what's going on. And she just said, I don't think I'm the one to talk to. I'm like, do you want to be my sister or not? What do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
So one woman hurts me and now another one does it. I'm just like, you know what? I don't think I like women very much.
Right.
I'll use them for what I want, but I don't, they're not going to get my heart.
Right.
So now my sister Diane calls and she's in Bishop and she's saying, mom's in bad shape. I don't think she's going to make it through the night. I've been drinking since noon and I'm high as a kite. So I just like, I can't make it tonight. I remembered Bishop was about a 6 hour drive from Chico. And I'm like, it's 9:30. There's no way.
Yeah.
I've been drinking. I can't, there's no way. So I remembered something in psychology from years earlier where parents who are dying and have had dysfunctional families can hang on until all the kids are back in the house.
Mm.
So I said, Diane, just tell mom I'm going to go to Sacramento and pick up my brother. My brother's 3 years younger. And then we'll be in Bishop tomorrow by 4 p.m. Just tell her to hang on.
Yeah.
And man, I wasn't looking forward to this. I'm not ready for it. Nobody could encourage me. There's nothing. What do you say?
Yeah.
And so we get to Bishop, and it's the house I grew up in. The last 3 years or so, mom divorced dad, and we were living in a double wide mobile home. And Diane's there. I didn't want to see her either. And I walk in, and there's that oxygen machine. Bzz. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Okay, this sucks. I don't like this. And my mom she was a very large woman. She was well over 300 pounds.
Mm.
And I know that I was ready to see her and that she'd had a radical mastectomy. Her right breast had been removed. But I walk into the room, she's on oxygen, she's laying there. I mean, she's easily lost 100 and something pounds.
Wow.
She's a bag of bones. And I'm like, what? This is what I've been hating. This is what I've been afraid of.
Yeah. Wow.
And this shame. I mean, it was just the way I felt about myself. I'm like, this sucks. So I go and I kneel on the bed to give her a hug. I was doing the best with what I had.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, honey, you're on my oxygen. I kneeled on her oxygen tube.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, can this day get any worse?
Right.
You know what? In my head, I'm like, God, I can't, I want nothing to do with you.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't want anything to do with this. So I know in that moment, and I knew before when my sister called me, he's like, if I don't go to Bishop and at least say something, I'm going to hate myself forever. Like, I don't like what's happening, but I only have one chance to do something,
Yeah.
whatever that might be. And so in that moment, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get settled in my room and I'll talk to her later. So my brother and I get settled in our rooms, and it comes a time, and I'm like, you know, it's now or never. There's nothing to rehearse. So I walked into her door. I closed the door behind me, and I said, "Mom," and I didn't believe these words, but I said something that I knew she would understand. I said, "Mom, I'm really sorry I haven't been talking to you lately, but I've had to ask Jesus for the strength to forgive you for all that stuff you did to me when I was younger."
Mm.
And I was expecting, she had a temper, so I was expecting a blow up, but all she could do was just lay there. So I'm standing like off to her side, and all she could do is look away, and with this shameful look on her face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. And I don't remember anything that was said after that. There might have been more. I wanted to rip her a new one too, but I couldn't, man.
Yeah.
Seeing her like that, I just couldn't. I mean, I couldn't even fathom what she'd been suffering through. And here I am. I've been hating her for all that time. The devil started kicking me.
Yeah.
It says to honor your father and mother. You just hated her. Look, what kind of child are you? It was ugly. Um, so my brother and sister went to bed. I was always a night owl. I'm like, I'm gonna find something to watch. And I was thankful I found reruns of Cheers.
Mm.
I'm like, make me laugh, Norm. I need something to laugh at, man. And his one-liners are always good for that. So I had I'm sitting here on the couch, and my mom's uh, the wall to my side is my mom's bedroom, and it's a double-wide mobile home, so it's very thin walls.
Yep. Oh yeah.
When I graduated high school, all I had ever heard from that room was snoring.
Mm.
And I'm very careful about keeping the volume low because I wanted her to rest, man. And I was so angry, but I still had. It was weird, man.
Yeah.
It was weird. But then I heard her laughing. I'm like, what is going on in there? So I turned the volume down a little more. And then it stops. I'm like, okay, she's having a dream. And then she's talking. What? I'm trying to hear.
Yeah.
But through the wall, I couldn't make sense of the words. And then there's laughter again. I'm like, wait a minute. I started realizing, like, wait a minute. I didn't have the language for it, but I'm like, something spiritual's going on in there.
Hmm.
No, she's laughing and she's talking. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna open the door and see what's going on in there. And get my hand on the doorknob, and I get it turned about halfway, and something in me is like, that's not for me.
Hmm.
I don't know if I was afraid to see something or afraid. I don't know what that was. I can't explain it, but I'm like, I don't want to know.
Wow.
And the laughing and talking went on, I mean, for probably an hour. And I thought, I don't know, she's hallucinating or she's dreaming or something. And
Right.
I finally decided to go to bed. Next thing, my brother's waking me up. He can't talk. He didn't need to. So I get my pajamas on and walk into the room, and she's gone.
Hmm.
Her legs are dangling off the end of the bed. She's not moving. I'm wanting her to move because I feel like, I'm realizing
Yeah.
I never told her I love her. I blew it. I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I had one chance. And grabbed my brother, put my head on his shoulder, and just freaking bawled. He tries to keep it together more than I do, but I mean, at that point, man, we were all just sobbing, and because of all the stuff I was going through, I'm like, I can't stay here. Hospice is going to come take her body out of here. And if I start seeing bodily fluids falling out of her, I want to shoot myself in the head.
Mm,
And there were guns in the house. I mean, I would never do that, but
right.
I wasn't feeling good about myself. I said, I said, Mike, can you call Jess? He was living with his girlfriend at the time, now his wife and
Yeah.
kids and all that stuff. So can you call Jess and maybe have her come get you? I can't be here. So I drove back to Chico, just having a conversation. I'm like, God, I'm sorry I doubted you existed, because I know she was talking to Jesus. I believe now he was bringing her across.
Mm,
And I think he was working stuff out with her. Like, yeah, this is what Phil was talking about. Let's get rid of that. And I mean, there's only one explanation when you're suffering like that and you're laughing. That's the only thing I can think to explain it. It's Jesus.
yeah.
But in that moment, I'm like, screw you. What do you expect me to do with this?
Hmm.
Oh, I know. I'm going to stop at that gas station. I'm going to pick up some 24-ounce cans of Mickey's, and I'm going to drink all the way back to Chico. About an hour from Chico, I said, man, I have the bong. I'm going to throw a bowl in there. I'm smoking with the bong between my legs. And those are rough times, man.
Yeah.
Um, then we had her celebration of life. So she died on December 19th of 97. And February of 98 was her celebration of life. So drove back to Bishop. That's when we were going to start, getting all the things out of the house so we could sell the house. And she had paid for my education in New York. So my brother, who was the executor, came up and said, Phil, he was really nervous to tell me. He just said, looks like in the will, mom said, you have to pay that back. I'm like, that's totally fair. Why should that come out of your pocket? That's fine. I only want one thing. I want grandmother's. So my mom's mom, I don't know why it meant so much to me, but there was a cedar footlocker. I'm like,
Mm,
I want that. It's an antique. I want that. I forgot to tell Mike before I left. So I got back to Chico, called the house, and Diane answered. I said, hey, I forgot this cedar chest. I'm going to come back next weekend and pick it up. What does she do? She mails it to herself. She's been shipping the china to herself, shipping the silver, and now she takes the one thing I asked for. So I swore off any relationship with her.
mm.
I'm like, I have 4 other half sisters. I don't need you,
Wow.
you know. So go back to Chico. I'm still smoking, drinking, delivering pizza for a living. And when mom died, I'm like, dude, you kicked butt in the toughest massage program in the country. What are you doing? I mean, it was heavy.
Yeah.
And at that time, my dad was living in Bend. They had divorced when I was in high school, and he was 51 when I was born. So at this point, he's 80. And I'm like, I just lost mom with a ton of regrets. I'm not going to lose dad that way, too.
Yeah.
So I moved up to Bend to get to know him. And I couldn't, I wasn't going to be able to pull my stuff together, live with my best friend and smoking weed like champions. I knew I had to get out. So moved to Bend, had to move in with my dad because I hadn't received my inheritance yet from mom. And a man who realized the error of his ways, being a workaholic father, is now trying to be my best friend. And I'm like, this is not going to work for me. I don't want to go to Elks Lodge with you every day,
Yeah.
you know, and shoot pool and hang out with the old smokers. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So finally get my own place. I got a job as a lifeguard and swim instructor at the pool there. And that was the first time I realized I think I had a problem. I remember looking at an empty 12 pack that I just drank that night. And I'm like, maybe I should quit drinking because I'm liking this way too much. I might be an alcoholic.
Getting a little out of hand.
getting a 12 pack by myself at night,
Yep.
you know, well, I'll just drive to Safeway and I'll get more, and then we'll deal with that later.
Yep.
So, that's where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So tack on 20 years of that, that was in like May of 98, 2001. I got my first DUI, got pulled over for a missing headlight, you know,
Mm.
like, come on, man, can't I just follow you home? That was like, I wouldn't be doing my job very well if that happened, right?
Mm.
Yeah, that was really a slap on the wrist. Went through diversion, man. I went through my diversion class. All that was showing videos of what happens when drunk drivers kill people. Just the repercussions and the
Yeah.
waves of like the uh, how many people's lives it actually affects.
That was probably the tail end of the era where you could get away with driving under the influence.
Yep, yep. So slap on the wrist there. I made sure I had alcohol in the truck so that when I was done with that meeting, I could start immediately before I got home. Um, Almost never went anywhere without alcohol between my legs.
Hmm.
13 years later, 12? What was that? 12 years later, got my second drunk driving charge. And I knew I was going to be doing jail time. In Oregon, at least Deschutes County, it's an automatic 10 days. And I started drinking it. This is how it had progressed. I started drinking that morning at probably 8 in the morning and got pulled over at 10:30 at night after bowling league. And I was getting to the point where I was barely eating, you know, it was alcohol. I would eat like half a cheeseburger from Jack in the Box or something just to eat. And that night blew a .22,
Mm.
which is, three times the legal limit almost. And it didn't slow me down, man. Went through 10 days of jail, was living with my girlfriend. We were drinking buddies. So when I got home, there were 2 bottles of vodka waiting for us. And it was a trap,
Yeah.
just a vicious trap. So my job at that point was about 40 minutes out of town. And on my way back to the house where I was living with my girlfriend, I drank 2 24-ounce cans of Mickey's and went straight to Walmart because I told her I was going to get alcohol for us that night. So all I had the money for was a 1 gallon jug of fine wine with the finger
Yep.
holder.
Yep.
And then I said, okay, I have $3. That'll get me 2 more 24-ounce cans of Mickey's. So I'm at Walmart. I'm looking at the shelves and I don't see Mickey's. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to steal that can of Budweiser.
Hmm.
I'm going to drink that on the way to the other store so I can get my Mickey's, and then I'll head home. And I got caught stealing that can of Budweiser. I had stolen alcohol before. I was a thief, man. I mean,
Wow.
I would walk through, if the camera's coming at me from this way, when I crossed an aisle, I would quickly shove it in my pocket. I was crafty. But
Mm-hmm.
that night, I wasn't so crafty. So to go into court for that, keep in mind, I mean, this is my second drunk driving charge. And I believe yeah, I did. I'd already had one driving while suspended charge. So, I mean, it wasn't going well, man.
Mm-mm.
Now I got caught stealing alcohol on probation for my second drunk driving charge. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, this
Wow.
isn't going to end well, you know?
What year was this?
That was in 2014,
Hmm. Okay.
2014. So I go to court for that offense. And where I was living with my girlfriend was actually Redmond, Oregon, and the court was in Bend. So I had about a 20-minute drive. And I strategically placed 3 Mickey's cans on the floorboard because it was still cold at night. And I'm looking at them on my way to court. I'm like, I just need one to settle my nerves. On my way to court, dude.
Man.
And then the alcoholic reasoning in me said, you know, save it. Because after this court appearance, I'm really going to need to get drunk. So I'll want that third one then. So I just waited, go into court, and there's a line of people out the door for similar offenses. The judge looks at me. You know, there's a guy in front of me, and she says, can you go to the sheriff's office and pass a breathalyzer today at 4? And his answer was, I should be able to. I'm like, that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, man. And right then, I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't drink that beer. I'm so glad I didn't drink that beer. Get up, it's my turn. And I'm assuming the position. I'm holding my hands in front of myself and just trying to submit. And she looks at me and looks at the charge, and she just like puts her face in her hands and shakes her head. I'm like, oh crap.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm really in trouble. And she says, okay, I'm going to give you the option. You can either do 90 days in jail, or you can do 90 days with an alcohol detecting monitor. I'm like, monitor? I'm not going back to jail. I'll lose my job. My dog is, I can't, I'll pay for this monitor. Can you pass a breathalyzer at 4:00 today? Yep. Because I didn't drink that beer. Yes, I can.
Yeah.
So go in there. If I didn't pass the breathalyzer, it was automatic 1 year in jail. So I get there, and that guy that was in line before me is walking back the other direction. Like, he's going to jail. I don't know if they stopped for lunch and had a drink, or if he had been drinking that morning or what. But so I'm sitting there, breathalyzer. This is at 4 p.m., maybe 5 at that point, and I still blew a .02. Just from because I quit drinking at 1 a.m. So get this thing latched onto my ankle, and I get to my truck, and I just sit there. I'm looking at the cans of beer. Thank you, God. It's over. Like, my choices had to be taken from me. I wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
So one at a time, as the truck doors open, I just emptied those cans of beer in the parking lot of the jail. I'm like, normally I don't litter, but I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Here, you've probably seen these a lot, And that's that night I called a buddy of mine that I'd met in jail about going to some AA meetings because they were mandatory at that point. And that's what got me sober, man. So it took a long time. It took 5 weeks before I really believed I could actually survive without alcohol in my life.
So that monitor, how is it one of those that's in the ignition? Is that what you mean?
No, I had that too, the blow and go. But the monitor itself is, say it's like kind of like this, like my wallet. It's about this big.
Yep.
They strap it to your leg, and it's got a little metal screen, rectangular screen that makes you sweat.
Okay. Yep.
And then
so it tests your sweat.
Yep.
Gotcha.
They also told me there was some infrared that would test my BAC as well. So, so the 90 days that I was required to wear that, I had to check in at the sheriff's office twice a week, where the computer could see if I'd been drinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not, as much of a dogfight as it was, I'm like, I can't go back to that life. I don't. I have a chance here. So at 5 weeks sober, I'm talking to my AA sponsor, the guy that helps me go through the 12 steps and all that stuff. And I'm like, Mark, I think I can do it. You think you can do what? And he He was no nonsense, man. He had done prison time for coke, guns, stealing cars, and alcohol.
Hmm.
So, you can't manipulate him. he's just he's got street cred. So I don't remember what I was saying to him, but one night I'm sure I was trying to fill him with all kinds of nonsense that my life is great. I'm sober and I'm sleeping well and all this stuff. And I love my lady. And, she never quit drinking. So I'm waking up next to someone smells like a vodka
Hmm.
hangover every morning. And he knew it. He knew I was full of it. He said, Phil, I want you to think about this and call me tomorrow. Tell me how you like where your life is at.
Yeah.
So I call him the next night. Mark, I've been thinking about it. And I had to make sure my woman wasn't listening. It's like, I'm living with a girl I can't stand. I'm sober. She doesn't want to get there. I'm the one tucking her girl in at night. You know, I'm going to have to be in court 10 months out of the year, this coming year. I mean, the $15,000 in fines, $400 a month for this thing on my ankle, $100 a month for this blow and go, $300 a month for my auto insurance. Actually, no, my life sucks right now.
Hmm.
And he said something to me that I'm forever grateful for. He said, Phil, I'm glad you thought about all that stuff. Let me ask you something. You know what your way got you, right? You got yourself into this mess. Why don't we try God's way for a change?
Hmm.
I just okay, I give up. I give up on my way. I almost died. I had jaundice. My liver was failing. My skin and my eyes were turning yellow, and I'm like, I'm not gonna. My way sucks.
Yeah. Wow.
And he said, if you know that you can stay sober, I want you to go tell your dad that you quit drinking. He was 96 at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I go into his assisted living home, and I'm wearing jeans in late July because I didn't want him to see me with that hardware on my ankle.
Hmm.
I wanted him to know I quit drinking. I didn't want him to know how much trouble I was in.
Yeah.
You know, that was it. So he was extremely hard of hearing. So I stand there at the foot of he's laying in bed. I mean, his mind is still sharp. He was an accountant for over 60 years, but his body was failing.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Dad. He goes, hey, Phil. I said, I quit drinking, Dad. He looks at me. Finito, Phil? And I went, finito, Dad. And he just went, attaboy, Philip.
Oh man.
And I was like, what? To the day he died, he never said, I love you to me.
Huh.
He grew up in the Great Depression. He was number 11 of 13 kids. His dad died when he was 9. He
Yeah.
didn't know. He wasn't an emotional guy. So, but in that moment, I'm like, he actually cares.
Wow. Yeah.
He was worried about me. 10 days after that, he lost his powers of speech. 10 days after that, he was gone. I know that me telling him that helped him let go of this life. Like
Hmm.
I don't have to worry about my firstborn son. He had 4 daughters in his first marriage, and I was the firstborn. And I found out later that he lost one of his brothers to cirrhosis.
Hmm.
So he could see it in me. He also knew he couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So now I'm just every day, AA, every morning, driving to my job, just dotting I's, crossing T's, compliant, compliant, compliant. That's all just don't drink. Just
Yeah.
don't drink. That was my mantra.
Yeah.
Just don't drink. And after 90 days, I was to appear in court to get not only to get the thing removed off my ankle, but to get sentenced, for breaking probation, not only breaking probation, stealing alcohol,
Hmm.
not just stealing alcohol, but stealing alcohol on probation. I mean, they were just stacking it up on me.
Oh, for sure.
And I had one friend who I used to drink with who prayed the night before that God's grace would be in the courtroom. I didn't know God answered prayer. I wasn't, I hadn't been back in church. I was kind of talking to God again, I guess,
Yeah.
without cussing at him. I was just dipping a toe in,
Yeah.
and because I didn't trust him. I still blamed him for everything. My attorney, my court-appointed attorney, I never paid her a penny, says, "Okay, Phil, there's literally nothing you can say to help yourself." And I'm like, "I won't say a word." She says, "There's a judge in here I like, and the assistant DA, so I'm gonna try something a little different." I'm like, "Okay, I'm looking at prison time, so whatever." The judge opens my file and says, "Oh, well, I can't say I've ever seen something like this before, but Mr. Assistant DA, what do you think?" He's sitting there. I'm scared to death, man.
Hmm.
So I got my hands behind me, clasped behind me, and I look over at him. I don't know what he saw. I'm sure it was a lot of fear. He saw something. He looks at me, then he looks back at the file and says, "Yeah, I'm good with it." And the judge goes, "Okay, well, great. We're going to go ahead and dismiss the theft charge." And I was like,
Oh, okay.
"What? What? How?
Yeah.
What is going on right now?" And I just didn't say a word because I just like, what is. So we walk out of the court, and as the doors closed, something special happens when your attorney turns around and goes, "Yes,"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for a high five. And I'm like, "Wait a minute. I'm not going to prison right now?" She's like, "No." I call my friend that was praying for God's grace. I'm like, "You're not going to believe this."
Yeah.
I was so stunned that I went home without the paperwork from my attorney to get that thing removed off my ankle. Like, this is. So I race back to her office. She hands me the sheet. And I'm like, I can't think. I mean, the legal system doesn't work like that. There's too much money to be made for me to be in prison,
Right. Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what would you even? She's like, "I don't know, Phil. I had to tell the DA there's something different about this one." I'm like, wow. So I get the thing removed off my ankle. The poetic part is that day would have been my mom's birthday.
Huh.
I'm like, what in the. So immediately took my dog to the river because I wasn't able to submerge that ankle. And I stood in the river for the first time in 3 months. It was in September, so it was perfect weather.
Yeah.
And I just like that same day on my way home, somebody backs into me in the parking lot. And the thought, there's alcohol right inside.
Mm.
And I'm like, not no, but hell no. I'm not going back to that.
Yeah.
I refuse. So a couple months passed, and my friend that would prayed for God's grace to enter the courtroom suggested I maybe go back to church. And I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
Christians are pretty judgy, you know,
Yeah.
especially the Baptist church I grew up in.
Yep.
I walk in there as an alcoholic, they're not going to want me there. So I go through, find a couple of churches. I'm like, yeah, that's sounds familiar, but I would come in, wouldn't sit next to anybody, and then I'd get out, first out the door. Then I God knows how to God knows how to bait the hook, man. I went to So I've been a huge UFC fan for a long time. And I'm at a sports bar with a friend who knows I'm not drinking. And he says, we're going to make sure that I don't drink.
Mhm.
And we had a server that comes up and says, "Hi guys, how you doing?" She recognizes my friend, or she thought she did. She says, "Hey, have I met you before? Have I seen you at church?" I'm like, "Dude, this chick goes to church." Beautiful woman, tattoos everywhere. I was like, "Oh, you know." Who are
Maybe I
you?
should go to church.
Yeah, maybe I will go to church. So I find out where she goes to church just through, Bend is still kind of a small place. And I go and I look up the location of Mission Church, and it's located in a bar that went out of business where I used to drink and dance.
Wow.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I go in there looking for her, and I'm like, yep, that's the dance floor I used. Yep, there's the bar. Now they're serving coffee, and it's the media station.
Yeah.
But I'm not sitting with those people. So the dance floor was about 2 steps lower. That's where the sanctuary was.
Okay.
I'm sitting back in the back, and I'm on a bar stool at a pub table listening to the gospel. And the pastor just starts talking about Jesus delights in the mere thought of you. And he starts pointing around the room. He points directly at me. And I felt his presence for the first time.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, God, I didn't know I could feel you. What is happening? And I just start crying, man. I'm trying to fight it.
Yeah.
A couple months later, it's at a Wednesday night service. I'm still about, I don't trust anybody, man. I was a real mess.
Yeah, for sure.
Sitting, that was my spot. I had my own pub table and a bar stool, and I'm listening to the message. And the pastor said, this is a Nazarene church, man. The pastor says, if you think there might be something extra and you've never been baptized in the Spirit, I want you to come forward. I want more. So I went forward. And I'm standing there, hands out, ready to receive a gift. And I see the pastor reach his hand up to put his hand on my head. So I closed my eyes, and I saw a light coming through the top of my head as he put his hand on my head. A light from the top of my head. I didn't shake. I didn't feel anything. But I just went back and I sat back in my place, and I'm like, what was that? Was it my imagination? I looked where I stood. I'm trying to figure out, was that a light in my top of my eyelids? What was that?
Yep.
It was a light through the top of my skull. And I got messed up. Like, I could not hold it back. Snot, slobber, tear. I mean, I was sweating. I didn't know what that was. After my years at BSSM, I look back on that. I'm like,
you're being delivered.
When Jesus was talking about the prodigal son, that was me.
Wow.
It's like I came out of the muddy swine hole. I never got any judgment. He just loved me and welcomed me home.
Wow.
And I didn't understand it. So I want to fast forward. That part was really important, but
for sure.
I went through first year BSSM, and Steve Backlund was speaking at my activation, healing and pastoral care. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but now I found out it was actually a vision where I'm sitting basically like at a high school football stadium. And I'm watching the offense is here, defense is here. Offense is trying to go this way for the touchdown.
Yep.
And I'm watching, quarterback snaps the ball, running back comes around this way, quarterback hands it off to him, and the running back smashes through the defense and is running for the touchdown. Like, there's no stopping him. Then the view changed. I said, and I realized it was actually God watching the game, and I was the running back. And God stood up and he said, "That's my son. Go, son, go," with his fist in the air.
Wow.
I went, wait, you're my dad? You're my dad.
Yeah.
Wait, wait, you're actually my dad. I have supernatural DNA. I can
Yeah.
do miracles. What is happening? I was doing DoorDash to pay for school. I was weeping, delivering food. It took me 3 weeks to actually let that sink in. Like, I'm a son of God.
Yeah. Wow.
After all I did to him, cussing at him and all, he never turned his back on me. He never stopped loving me. When my hypnotherapist in New York asked me to imagine a spirit guide, it's very new agey, you
Yep.
know, but she asked me to come up with what this person would look like. Thin person, dark hair, and a beard, wearing, I thought, like hemp clothing and sandals. I named him John. And we would just walk along the sand, and we were sitting under a coconut tree one time, and I would just cry on his chest. I realize now that was Jesus.
Interesting.
And my mentor in third year had Jesus talk to him when he was in the middle of an acid trip.
Yeah.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make there is just like we shouldn't try to put God in a box because he doesn't live there.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But the biggest and my favorite redeeming thing that God's ever done for me was in healing rooms between first and second year. I had just seen a man get healed of terminal stage 4 cancer in prison on my first mission trip. I felt his tumor shrink beneath my hand.
Wow.
And he's locked up. So I'm like, okay, question God, you really don't have boundaries.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. So in healing rooms, it's probably a month after mission trip, a woman walks up and she hands the intake sheet to me. And I look at it, it says stage 4 breast cancer. And you're going to do it again. Like, I just knew. That my faith was just, this is going to happen. Yeah. Or I'm never going home. You know what I mean? So we start praying. One of Chuck's previous year's interns was actually a green dot. So he was the team leader. Okay. But I was like, I feel like this is personal for me. So I'm going to pray some things that I feel need to happen. I prayed the same thing I prayed for that guy in prison. Holy Spirit fire, just burn up this tumor. All cancer cells, you're not allowed in this vessel. In Jesus' name, we just release the healing of heaven. Just that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. After about 10 minutes, I'm like, nothing's happening. Wait, God, what's going on? Am I praying the wrong thing? I started talking to him about it. I'm like,
right.
Do I need to shut up? I mean, what? Because I know you can do this. You showed me last month. And all of a sudden, this woman starts unbuttoning her shirt. I'm like, hey, whoa, we're in church here. She goes, no, I need to feel something. She puts her hand. Sorry, let me adjust the camera here.
Oh, you're good.
Puts her hand into her armpit. And she goes, I can feel the tumor shrinking. I'm like, yes. So I put my hand on her elbow and just, Holy Spirit, thank you. Just more fire, more healing. Cancer, leave in Jesus' name. And she pulls her hand out of there. She goes, here, put your hand in here. I'm like,
no, can't do that.
I can't put my hand in your shirt. I mean, I want to feel that thing, but I can't do that. But she can. So there's a Brazilian student standing behind her, a female.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll put my hand in there. So she reaches around from behind her, puts her hand. I can feel it shrinking.
That's wild.
Put my hand on her. I wanted to feel a shrinking tumor, man.
Yeah, but
unfortunately, I can't put my hand.
Yeah.
And she just, I'm like, so how's the pain level? And she just, the pain is gone. I'm like, that's awesome. Try not to look, but
Hilarious.
I mean, modesty's out the window.
Hmm.
Like the God of ancient day.
Yeah, this is like David freaking I'll become more undignified than this kind of a moment right
Yes,
there.
exactly. And I was just like, so we didn't. There was no shaming. I'm just like, she's getting free.
Yeah.
Like we were watching like the dark circles under her eyes clear up, like right in front of us.
Wow.
She goes up, shares the testimony to release it of what God did.
Yep.
And the next day, I'm sitting at the 10:30 service. Bill's up there talking, and he just casually, yeah, well, we recently had stage 4 breast cancer healed in our healing rooms, and it was medically verified. I look at my
Yes.
friend. I'm like, wait, she was from San Jose. There's no way she raced home on a Saturday. Nah, I don't know. I wanted to believe it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to just assume. I called my friend Amy up in Bend, who's a nurse, and she said, Phil, a lot of people bring their medical records to the healing rooms. It's my understanding that you have to have an appointment for a mammogram. You can't just walk into an emergency clinic. I don't think so. I'm not sure if it was the same woman.
Yeah.
I like to think it was, but the point is that day when Bill is sharing about medical verification, and I had just prayed the day before and seen this woman get radically healed. That Sunday was Mother's Day, bro.
Wow.
And I was like, you did not just do that. God, you let me be a part of something so special. That was enough. How do you do this?
Hmm.
And he goes, Phil, I know how mad you were at me, and I know you blamed me for all that stuff in your childhood, but I wanted you to know I never forgot how much it hurt you to lose your mom like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, you love me like that? He said,
Man.
son, I love you more than that.
Man, so that's like that that's like the redemption of they say that like, the things you go through is what you'll have victory in later.
Yeah.
It's like I mean, obviously, the alcohol thing. I mean, I guess here's a good question. Have you personally walked anybody else through that yet, or through like them breaking their own alcohol addiction? I mean, if not, you're totally like your story's gonna help at
Yeah.
least encourage some people, I'm sure. But I'm
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've seen it yet.
Yes, I have.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Dude, so it's funny. Man, this is crazy to think about. So when I went through my divorce, actually, it was before we even went through the divorce. So for context for you, I don't know if I've told this before or not, but she had an affair and left me for somebody else,
Oh,
right? And
brutal.
I was in the process of believing that God would redeem that, and through that, I'm being coached by a couple who had been through the process of him having an affair on her, and they were
Oh,
coaching me on like how to, because she fought for that marriage for months and months,
oh,
and they ended up back together, and God redeemed it and everything. And I'm actually hopefully interviewing a different couple that went through the same thing and came out the other
oh,
side, but soon. But yeah, like while I'm being coached through this, believing for redemption that ne ended up never coming in, at least not in that way. I'm
right.
my redemption now, is what I say. But
Yeah.
uh I had another lady come to me about her husband, and she's like, "Yeah, he's left me for somebody else. I don't know what I should do." I ended up coaching her while I'm believing for something that I haven't even had happen yet, and uh, they ended up back together and are still together years later, and from what I understand, doing way better than they had been.
Wow.
I'm like, man, it's crazy how God does stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
like the stuff that you go through, man, I love that. And then obviously the redemption on the mother's part. So I am
Yeah.
curious. I mean, we we touched on the mental health aspect, but like What was the process for you of like forgiving her actually? Because you mentioned that you had told her that, but you didn't believe it at the time.
Yeah, it
Um,
was not, that was not from the heart. So the buddy I went to the sports bar with, who that the server thought she recognized him, gave me a book called The Shack.
that's a good one.
And I got laid off in 2009. Uh, and he was a friend of mine. We were drinking buddies, and I quit drinking in 2014. June 17th was my sober date, and he gave me this book. He said, "I just think you'll find some value in this." So I'm reading it, and I get to the part where God is showing Mac this little boy that's in like an empty horse trough, and he's just being beaten with a belt, just smacking. He's begging his dad to stop beating him. And God says, "Okay, what do you think that man deserves?" He says, "I think he should burn in hell." "Okay, what do you think that boy deserves?" "That boy needs to be loved and rescued." And God says, "Mac, that little boy is your father."
Mm,
And when I read that, I'm like, oh, my mom must have been beaten and raped and molested. Oh, mom, I forgive you.
wow. Yeah.
Like, that was the first time I said it out loud. But I was 15 beers deep into a 30 pack,
Yeah.
so I wasn't slowing that down, but it impacted me.
Yeah.
And I talk about this in the book. Like, that's the first day when the devil started losing his grip.
That's awesome.
So anyway, leading up to sobriety, those thoughts would come into my head. Mom, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Mom, I forgive you. And I'm 2.5 years sober. I had just gone to a swim meet. I was competing and chasing my dream to be a massage therapist in the Olympics. And I went to a swim meet in Florida where Rowdy Gaines is the host. And Rowdy Gaines is an Olympic medalist from the 80s and current Olympic swimming announcer.
Hmm.
He wrote a letter of recommendation to the Olympic Committee saying my gift would be an asset to the Olympic teams.
Hmm.
So I'm like, I'm feeling all this like, God, you're opening doors. And at that point, I was living in my first ever sober living place. I was in a cabin in the woods on an acre with me and the dog. And I'm just walking through. I'm like, oh, like I realized the pain was gone. I think a lot of it was the self condemnation, but I just, Mom, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Like it was, he just took it. I had been saying it out loud, so the devil heard me for years. I mean, the pain could have been gone for a week. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's when I noticed it. And tack on a few years, 2020, right before COVID was announced, I had just gone to Brazil with Randy Clark, and it was my first supernatural experience.
Wow.
And I'm watching football. And I was like, whoa, I could hug mom. Like there wouldn't be any animosity. That's
Yeah.
weird. Like I always wondered if she was alive, would I have a relationship with her?
Yeah.
She was she was an angry woman. She was just tormented.
Yeah.
The next weekend, I'm upstairs watching the UFC with my friend Amy. She goes home. I'm in bed. And I feel like Holy Spirit tapped me on the shoulder and said, Phil, that wasn't your imagination. Your mom wanted to hug you.
Hmm.
And I was like, what is happening? And I'm in bed and the tears, I mean, it's like they're free flowing. I got a puddle on the back of my head
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that if she was alive, not only could I do this, but I would take her by the hand, say, Mom, I know you had it worse than I did. Let's go talk about this.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff can't be explained. There's no pill you can take. There's no hypnotherapy. There's no counseling. There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, the only thing I can explain is that I believe it's Matthew 6:33. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. all these things will be added to you.
Yeah.
At freedom from shame. He restored a relationship in an impossible way, man.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
can't be explained.
I believe it. I mean, I've got a friend I've had on here several handful of times now who sees in the spirit. You know,
Oh,
I follow people that see in the spirit all the time. They see people and all this. I believe all that. Like I
yeah,
am all in on that. That's
yeah,
fantastic. The
yeah.
And then just seeing Jesus be the great counselor for you, you know, like it's actual therapy is incredible, and I think it's necessary for most people.
Yep,
Uh, but I wholeheartedly believe that if the Lord can do it as well, you know,
totally.
is and and not saying that that should just be everybody's cop out to not do the work.
Right,
Because
right.
really, I mean, even still, would you say that there's still a lot of work to be done, and like like you've got to do the work to get mentally,
Sure.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
what's some of that process? I guess what are some tools, I guess, aside from just like, okay, I had these encounters with the Lord, but some of the tools, the mental health tools that you've utilized. I mean, obviously AA
Yeah,
teaches you a lot, but
yeah. It was big. But I went to a church meeting on a Tuesday night where we were just sharing what Jesus had done that week for us. I didn't have anything. People were going, he's getting wrecked. She's getting wrecked. That one's getting wrecked. And a friend of mine who had 3 years more sobriety than me, as soon as she started speaking, Holy Spirit said, Phil, you're not an alcoholic. Your identity is in Jesus Christ. You're not that abused little boy anymore. You are my child. So for identity, um, probably one of the biggest ones. And I'm not pumping Bethel over any
right.
other church or any other faith. It's Jesus.
Yeah.
But understanding my identity as a child of God was probably first and foremost. But also for me, being a competitive swimmer, when I quit drinking alcohol, I got to obsess about something.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to start swimming again.
Yeah.
And started swimming, competing. I paid a bodybuilder in my church to teach me how to cook because I had no clue.
Nice.
I my idea of healthy eating was ground turkey, romaine lettuce wrapped in a tortilla. Hey, I'm eating clean.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So I look at a guy's physique. I'm like, I bet he can have some pointers.
Yeah.
So he taught me how to count my calories, and I jumped on board with a health and wellness company. Um, and honestly, man, I started telling myself in the mirror, I'm like, Phil, you're a good man. God loves you, and so do I.
Yeah.
It was awkward at first, especially that
Yeah.
last part,
Yep.
but eventually it sunk in, and I realized I'm actually eating clean, taking care of this temple, which is what the Bible talks about,
Yep.
and I'm loving myself for the very first time. But when I came to Bethel, and it's been 3 years, I've been meeting monthly with a particular pastor.
Yeah.
Just if I have something troubling me, I'm like, hey, do you have time this Friday?
Yeah.
I need to talk. And he keeps it real.
It's awesome.
Like he's had to give me a couple of smackdowns,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I want to grow,
Yeah.
and growth hurts.
It does.
Um, and
And you
some I
can't
don't
avoid the pain.
know.
You know, there's so many people that are pain avoidant, and
Yeah,
so that's why they can't look at themselves and go, "Hey, I have this problem. I need to work through it." They're just like, "Yeah, I'm not even going to look at the problem."
right.
But you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. The identity piece, it reminds me of a guy named Matty Montgomery. He had a teaching on it, and he starts with the temptation in the garden, and then the temptation in the desert, Jesus. So
Mhm.
he talks about how uh, God said, "Let us create man in our image to be like us." And then what's the devil do? He goes, "Well, if you want to be like God, And then with Jesus, right before he goes out into the wilderness, it's, this is my son in whom I'm well pleased. Well, if you are the son of God,
Yep.
and that's a big piece of the temptation in the in general is uh like, do you believe that God is who he says he is, and do you believe that you are who God said that you are?
Right.
Because if you can believe those things, theoretically, you'd never sin again. You never have a problem again.
Right.
Like, other than, external problems. But like, theoretically, if you could perfect that, which, I mean, obviously this side of heaven, but if you could, and I'm finding the more I believe it, the less I struggle with stuff. I still struggle, obviously. I
Yeah.
know it's the same for you. We still struggle.
Yeah.
But the more we come into that true identity, as a culture, the entire issue right now is on all sorts of identity things. And the reality is once we align ourselves with the heavenly perspective of our identity and God's identity, we become so free from so many things, man.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're spot on because the devil's first words to Adam and Eve, did he really say that?
Hmm.
Just introducing doubt.
Yep.
No.
Exactly.
He's a
Exactly.
crafty liar. He's been doing it a while now.
Yeah, man. Well,
Yeah.
dude, your story, I mean, it hits close to home for me. My uncle, he ended up unfortunately passing away from drugs and alcohol. But
Oh,
yeah, it's man. Um, I know that stories like yours are so necessary these days because the amount of, I mean, I know there's so much abuse that goes unspoken. And
yeah.
I feel like it's getting even worse as technology evolves and things become easier, especially with, the pornography industry the way that it is. It's almost as if it's built to teach people to be abusers.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's stories like yours that can bring perspective and maybe an open door to healing for a lot of people, man.
I
And
hope so, man. Otherwise, I went through it for nothing.
yeah, yeah,
That's not the God I serve.
no, absolutely. He's
Yeah.
he's definitely going to use your, and the fact that you're putting out this book, man. Well, I am about, I think, a month and a half ahead of myself on these podcasts, so it'll be about that long. So, I mean,
Oh,
if you happen to have it published by then, it'll be linked in the
sweet, man.
description and everything. So if not, then yeah, I'll have to post it when once it's live, man.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to grab coffee sometime soon or something. I haven't
I'd
seen
love
you in
that,
too
man.
long.
I'd love that.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for being a part of the podcast. Hold on. So we ended the episode and then we just got to talking about a ton of different other stuff, and I realized I needed to hit record again. So let's real quick get back into this. All right, so you were working for the health and wellness company.
Yeah. Just a lot of it is it's nutritional supplements. So it helped me lose weight, get in shape, and I was selected as one of 15 people in all of North America, including Canada, to represent the company, not just because of my physical transformation, but because of my backstory,
Hmm.
coming from addiction and alcoholism to believing in myself, competing. I raced in the pool, got two top 10 finishes at nationals, and they wanted us. So their flagship event is Celebration. There were 15,000 people in the audience in Las Vegas, and there were 12,000 people. Is that right? 12,000 people in 14 countries or 14,000 homes in 12 countries. I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And 3 days before the stage, so we were given 3 minutes to give a rehearsed, I'm so thankful for isogenics for my health and believing in myself again. And, there's $25,000 at stake for the grand champion. That's what
Hmm.
I wanted. I wanted the money. But the previous year's champion came on and said, you guys, it's going to be hard to move people with just a 3 minute rehearsed thing. There's no emotion in it.
Yeah.
And I know you all have hard stories, so I want you to share your story. And I felt in that minute like God wanted me to tell
Hmm.
the story. And I'd never talked about it publicly. So, I mean, I was number 10 out of 15 to be on stage that day. They were going to be music that none of us selected. And that's my turn. We're going to walk through this laser curtain and all of it, smoke. And
Hmm.
the lady played, the person in charge of all this stuff selected Metallica's Enter Sandman for me. And when I watched the replay, it was the part where in that song it's saying, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep." I
Wow.
couldn't believe it, man. And so I'm on stage and I'm representing swimming. So I'm in, they're called jammers. It's a Speedo that goes just above the knee. Had my goggles here. And when I shared the part about my mom molesting me, 15,000 people gasped and silence. All I could think to say, because I didn't rehearse it,
Hmm.
I just let Holy Spirit run the show. I said, guys, I wasn't sure I wanted to bring that darkness into this room, but I want you to know I'm past it. And I could see people crying. Okay.
Yeah.
And I get off the stage. It was the scariest, most liberating 5 minutes in my entire life.
Wow.
There was an after party at a bar later. Again, this is in Vegas. Everybody in town knew I wasn't drinking. So, because I said, by the grace of God, I'm sober.
Hmm.
And the gentleman that was running the live stream, he's the one that told me about all the other people watching. And he's from Australia, so I'll do my best accent. He said, Phil, mate, what you did out there today was just bloody courageous. You let it all hang out there, mate. I got to tell you, when you walked off the stage, there was a huge spike in the chatter. People were really talking. And I just, I'm standing there with my 8-ounce bottle, $14 8-ounce bottle of water. And I just, God, you used me to break the silence.
Yeah.
And I'll just add one more part real quick, because it's important.
Yeah.
I got connected to a gentleman. I told my boss my story, and it was written in a magazine up in Bend. And my boss introduced me to this guy who had written a book called Men Don't Talk About This.
Mm.
His story was, I can't remember if one of his uncles raped him 3 times or three of his uncles raped him a bunch of times. It was
Okay.
it was it was a family
Either way,
stuff.
yeah.
And so he grew up with, you can imagine the shame. It went to college. It was drugs, alcohol, and women, just anything to try to fill the hole in your heart. And as I shared that story with him, and he said, Phil, I'm going to tell you something you probably never thought about. He said, I'm going to guarantee you that in that audience, when you spoke that, there were a ton of men that went home and told their wives for the very first time that they'd been molested or raped.
Yeah.
And I'm crying. I'm like, how come we never think about the men?
Yeah.
Why are we supposed to be tough guy, machismo? I think that's like the sticker on your drink where we talk about men talk.
Yeah.
Why does culture dictate that we're not supposed to be emotional or sensitive to our wives? And so that, I don't know, even, and I was a man that got abused, and I'm like, how
Hmm.
come we don't think about the men?
Yeah.
It's important to just silence doesn't heal anything.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't do squat.
It doesn't. And I can't remember, man, if I came up with this or if I heard it somewhere, but I said, pain hurts on the way out too, but there's freedom on the other side,
That's true.
you know?
My wife posted this in her story earlier. It said something, it said, conflict doesn't ruin relationships. Unspoken resentment does. Silent frustration does. Fake peace does. And that's what it is when effectively, um, when we don't talk about the things going on. Like that's what
Yeah,
ruins our lives. That's what ruins our relationships. The fact that we're not talking about stuff. Um,
totally.
And that, like, in a culture that wants authenticity and whatever, like, you, it is like we talked about earlier, like, you have to be willing to look at the pain points. You have to be willing to accept that, yeah, this is gonna suck. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing as like a really brutal leg day, dude. Like,
Yeah.
we all know that the bodybuilders are going in, they're hurting themselves like crazy, and the next
Yeah.
day they're gonna be regretting it. Not really, but like they're gonna be walking funny at the very least.
Yeah.
But we love that, but when it comes to emotional things, like we act like, "Oh no, you can't do that. That's too hard." It's like, "Nah, dude. It's
No.
eventually it's doing the reps, you know? I can talk
Totally.
about the hard things. I can talk about the fact that I was addicted to pornography for a long time because I've learned to be open with it. And at first, yeah, I was like, should I really talk
Yeah.
about this? It's like, no, yeah, I actually should because uh, like the shame part is like it is what it is, but realistically, like the amount of freedom that comes out the other side, that's that's the thing, man. Like
Yeah.
that's the key. Like you have to remember that it everything that goes on in life, it's the same picture of obviously, diamonds. They have to go through pressure and then through
Yeah.
cutting. Gold through fire and refinement,
Yeah.
like everything that we look at, it's all a process that's gonna hurt like hell for a while. But eventually you come out the other side purified and way better for it.
It's worth it.
It is, dude. Yeah, I'm glad I hit record again because
Yeah.
I
Yeah. That
think
was really important.
that was really important. Dude, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Anything else you feel like you need to?
Yeah. I mean, right now, I think I'm good. Um,
Sweet, man.
but yeah, maybe one thing just to add. Do you've seen, I'm assuming you've seen Braveheart more than once.
Oh yeah.
So at the very end, after he gets gutted and, he starts talking about, the men of whatever this town, fought for their freedom. They fought like warrior poets. I was like, wait, what is that?
Yeah.
In one of the classes my mentor taught called, oh, what is it? It's about being in one with nature and talking to God. Well, it turns out that in those days, those those men that would cleave someone's head open with a battle axe would then go home and write poetry to their wives.
Hmm.
That's called healthy masculinity. I'm not saying go out and kill somebody with a battle axe,
Yes.
but to be that man, the protector, and then still be tender enough to love your wife's heart. And we've lost sight of that, man.
Dude, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I talked about with a buddy of mine this idea of weak philosophers. It's the fact that most people aren't strong like in body or mentality, but like I feel like that sort of is a that feels like a piece that I can fit into that whole paradigm of like most people these days have terrible philosophies because they're weak in body and mind.
Yep.
And and current culture doesn't allow for strong philosophy very much because of how convenient everything is. And I don't know, man, I feel like that's a piece. That is a piece because I feel that, dude. Like I can get up and tear through a room with the best of them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I can get on and talk about the hard things. I can, choose to be vulnerable with my wife about things and learn useful conflict resolution and communication skills so that I'm not sitting here in bitter resentment because I
Yeah.
can't open up and ruining my relationships because of it. Dude,
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Yeah. So I was just reminded in second year, I was giving a massage to a woman who was in second year with me. She's from Australia. We were just brother and sister. It was never anything more than that. And we each felt that way.
Yep.
But we're sitting down after a massage and she's telling me, he's like, Phil, I had a friend come up to me and said she had a conversation with you. I'm like, I'm curious. Okay, who was it? She's like, actually, I don't think I'm supposed to tell you who. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
This sounds daunting. I'm not,
Yeah.
what are we talking about here? She said, no, she said she had a conversation with you. And then she came back to me and told me, she says, I had no idea that a big, bald headed, tattooed, muscular guy could be so tenderhearted. She said, he changed my entire perspective of men.
That's so
I'm
good.
like, whoa. I still don't know who it was.
Yeah.
Don't need to know, but I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely, dude. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, dude. I love it, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, for real this time. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to plug, I guess? I forgot this last time, but like I know you're doing massage therapy here in Reading.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody is local and wanted to get work done, how would they reach you, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, my email
Sure. Or,
is
if they want to reach out about the book or anything like that.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably put something on Facebook. I mean, I'll connect with you over it because
Okay.
I would really, I want the book to get out there, but I don't want to like promote myself.
Right.
If that makes sense, you know what I mean? I, I've told stories into a dictation machine because I asked Holy Spirit, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I'm just trusting that the words are anointed for whoever reads it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. You know how to reach out to me. I mean, I've been doing
All right.
massage for almost 30 years and really focused on athletes. And
Sounds good.
so,
Right on, man. Well,
yeah.
I just had to ask, just make sure.
Okay. Yeah. I'm renting an office, but it's someone else's business. I'm just doing it 2 days a week. So I don't have my own place,
Right on. Right on.
so to speak. But thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course, dude. All right. Well, have a good night, buddy.
All right. You too,
All
brother.
right. Love you.
Later.